thanks to Pam and Renee. They put this all together. They made all the contacts and so forth. I feel like the reverse Vanna White here. I'm going to give the talk about it, but they were the ones that got it all put together. And I think if you've taken a little time to take a look at it, as Cal has said, this is a real accumulation of these boudoir items and bedroom items that you're probably not going to see accumulation like this again. Also want to thank all the people that have brought in significant amounts of material. We had Mary Elda brought in quite a few of the jugs for us and some other things in here. And so this isn't just Pam, Renee, and Cal's collection. We've tried to accumulate as many as we could, primarily because we just wanted to see what was common and what wasn't common. And I think you can really see pretty quickly, if you find any tangerine pieces, don't let it go. Make sure you get it, because I know there's a couple more of those tangerine pieces out there, but I was really surprised that that's all that we could come up with for this. Obviously the Celeste Blue seems to be the winner. We've got probably more of the Celeste Blue than most of the others. And then my feeling is the Velvet Rose probably comes in maybe second, almost with a tie of the Grecian Gold. And originally, when I had seen a few of the Grecian Gold items, when you see one by itself, you go, yeah, okay, yeah. But it was actually Jan Reichling that got into collecting Grecian Gold. And one time when we were visiting Jan, we go, wow, when you put it all together, that's pretty stuff. And fortunately, we were able to get much of Jan's collection when she decided to disperse her collection. So, and again, I think it doesn't have that really stretchy effect, but let's face it, many of these items weren't shaped all that much anyway to have that real stretch effect. So if you get a nice, good satiny Grecian Gold, yours probably as good as any of the rest of them in that line. I was, again, a little bit surprised at the Florentine Green. That doesn't seem to be all that common, and the same thing with the Persian Pearl over there. So if you're really looking for rarity items, you might think of the wisteria, the green, the Persian Pearl, and of course the real winner of the rarities is the tangerine over there. Now, I'm not sure I want to bore you with all of the gory details. We did have in our Stretch Glass newsletter, I believe it was 2 editions ago, I had a summary again of most of these, but I did want to point out to me some of the kind of unusual things that can come up with these. The first one that I wanted to start with is, let's start with the colognes. And in the colognes, we'll start with the smaller ones first. And the smaller ones come in basically 2 versions, and virtually all of these are going to be Fenton. We will talk about some Northwood items here in a minute. And this always confuses me. The ones that have the quilted optic or diamond optic on the inside are the number 53s. And you can find the 53s in the cologne and in the small puff jar. But as we were accumulating this, did anybody notice anything different in some of those puff jars? Yeah. Some of the puff jars have that kind of a lid, okay? Now that's not in the diamond optic. All the quilted optic ones that I've seen do have this sort of a mushroom top, but all of a sudden we were getting jars coming in with a little ball top. Okay. Now the other thing, does anybody, I don't know if the collectors of some of the jade and the ebony and some of the other Fenton ones, have you seen the trays for those? Those, when they have the diamond optic, the number 53, there is one of these trays that hold it that also has a diamond optic in the surface of it. We've never found a diamond optic or a number 53 tray that has that on it. All of the trays that we've seen have been plain without that diamond optic. Now, also in this line, the next higher number, number 54, doesn't have the diamond optic. And somehow in my mind, that's backwards. I've always thought that the smaller number should be the plain one, and the higher number should be the more complicated one. But that's just not the numbering system in this. Now, Renee, could you hand me, whoops, I've got them back. Hold on. I was busy taking pictures of these. So here again are the Velvet Rose. This is the 53 with the diamond optic, and here's the one that's plain that doesn't have the diamond optic in this. Now, originally all of these should have stoppers that have a dauber that goes fairly close to the end of it, and it should be a fairly thick dauber. But the dauber is always the easiest thing apparently to break off. And you see these very commonly. If they break off, what many of the dealers will do is that they'll go in and they'll get somebody to cut it off. Now this one, they didn't do that one. This is just broken off, and they left it the way it is. That's fine. These are, but the difference between having one with a dauber that's complete and the one without, in my mind, is probably about 50% of the cost. So make sure that you consider that when you're purchasing some of these. Yeah, that one was. For some reason, there were 3 of these over here. Or, no, I guess both of those go over there. Okay. Does anybody notice some differences in the Velvet Rose? Yeah, it's light and dark. And so, in essence, if you showed Frank this one, he would say, well, we cooked that one a little too much. Remember that these are striking colors, and in the Velvet Rose, the chemicals that were in there, selenium base basically is a striking color. And if they cook it, if they heat it just a little bit more, it starts to turn brown. And so that's what's going on. Unfortunately, you can't recover the light pink color on this. They would have had to throw it back into the pot, reheat it completely, and pull it back out, and then try to restrike it. So they didn't do that. That was close enough for them. And frankly, we suspect that in the shop what they did, if you'll notice, this set over here is matched with a light pink jar, and this set over here is the darker pink with the darker jar. We feel that when they made sets of this, they probably did that. They matched them out when they come out of the Lear. And the customer probably didn't know the difference unless they had 2 side by side or 2 sets side by side with that. Now with the 54, that one does come with, again, the 54 jar without the diamond optic. And you've always wondered what all those little, what was that? Yeah, you've always wondered what these little bowls are. You probably have seen them in green and blue and so forth. And here's the deal. You almost have to get a tape in here. But typically if it's 3.5 inches plus or minus 1/8 of an inch, it's really the base of one of these jars. If it's wider than that, it was probably a bowl in there. And we've all seen them. And I would say that 80 to 90% of them that I see as a bowl, when I measure it, it's actually a jar bottom and it lost its lid somewhere on the line. Okay, yeah.
Base size be the same for the jar?
Yes, yeah, they use the same. The question is, if it is a bowl, is it the same mold? And the answer is yes. The bases are the same on those. And sometimes you'll find them actually almost straight up in that. You know that they were making bowls that day out of that particular mold, not the jars.
Yeah. Always cup in a
Yeah.
little bit.
So, Any other questions on those? Okay. Now, I didn't sort of get into my consciousness of what was going on in terms of the knobs, but the ones that are the 54s, remember you can have the mushroom shaped lid, or you can have a round ball lid on that. Now, for those of you that want a complete set of everything, that just complicates your life, because now you're going to have to find all those ones that have either or. Okay, let's move on to the moving up and the size of the colognes. The next ones are what I call the sort of squatty family of colognes, to use a Burns term. And the squatty ones are basically, the lowest one is 59. That's this little rascal. Okay. And as far as I can tell, all of these will have a nipple top, except they may occasionally have a flower top. Okay. Now, I've never found the short squatty ones, and I think the reason for that, if you take this and put a flower top stopper in there, look what happens. They would have had to pretty well grind off a whole bunch of that stopper, which would have been an extra process in that. So they probably didn't do that. Even with that said, I believe that the pagoda stopper that they use, every one of them that I've seen always is ground off a little bit. There's just a little grinding on that. And I think the reason for that is that they did use the same, what I call pagoda top or nipple top stopper for both the larger jar and the shorter jar, but they had to shorten this one by grinding it down so that it would seed in there and not hit the bottom for those. So if you see these, and it looks like it's about that length and it's got a ground off bottom, if you want to use that as a bargaining chip for the dealer that you're dealing with and say, well, that's been ground off. Well, if it's a short jar like this, it had to be ground off in order to fit in there. Okay, I hate to give away my secrets, but now the next larger size actually has a little pedestal foot on there, obviously a more robust tank to it. And again, if you see the stopper here, you can see that that's a fired off end. That's not been ground, not been polished. That would be the right size. But if you take this stopper and put it in one of these tall jars like this, it doesn't fit. It doesn't go far enough down in the bottom for that. So this stopper was made for this jar, but then they had to ground it off a little bit to go to the shorter jar for that. To me, also in this line is the bath salts jar. This is one that has, again, a pagoda top to it, or what I call a pagoda top to it, and a stopper in this one. This has got a ground stopper on the inside of that. And I'll let you take a look, as I think what we can see here is that of those, there's a fair number of those in blue that have shown up. I don't think we have a single pink one, do we? Velvet Rose one? So I don't see Velvet Rose. And the reason why I'm doing this is that just to point out that I don't think they made these evenly in number across all of those lines. So even within certain colors, there are some that are a bit more difficult to obtain. Now let's move up to what I consider to be the really elegant colognes, and these are the taller ones, and I'm going to pull out a complete set of these. These come with 3 stopper tops, pagoda top, what I call a mushroom top, and the flower top. And here's the problem. The mushroom top and the pagoda top, they give the same number, and that's 55. However, when they went through the process of putting a flower on the top of it, it's now 55 and a half. Now, I know that many of you are, we've tried to keep you away from this, but the reality is that I believe that the probably 80-90% of the ones that had flower tops came out with enamel on that flower top. They used a green enamel for the petals or the sepals out here. They used a pink enamel for the inside stamens and for the little ball on the inside of that. And for many of these, if you look at them carefully, you can see there's residue of green enamel in those. This one still has quite a bit of the pink. The problem is that this enamel was not fired on. So what does that mean? It's going to wear off really easily. Even my feeling is if you've got these in a place where they get cold and warm and expand and contract, it's just going to flake off and come off of there pretty easily. Now, stretch glass collectors, I know some of the collectors say, I don't like that, I'm going to rub it off of there, and I've not seen any problem. Like I said, since it's not heat applied, that enamel will come off fairly well and not leave a residue in there. But I'm kind of a purist. That's the way I found it. That's the way it's going to be for that. So here is a Grecian gold one with that in it. Here's a Celeste blue. And boy, I've checked this puppy out as best as I can. I don't see any evidence of the enamel on this one. But can you guess which one they really enameled up? 1, 2, 3, 4, all with that same enamel in there. And so it appears that they may have left the Celeste blue alone. But the topaz they really jazzed up. Now this one, somebody really cleaned this one really well, but I noticed when I held it up, there's a little dab of green paint right down at the base of that. So somebody worked really hard to clean that one off, but I can still see it looks good, even cleaned up. So if you're going to collect these jars, for every one of these colognes, you need 3 to have a complete collection for those. Now, is anybody aware of a wisteria one with a flower top? I've not seen one, but I just wondered if anybody might be aware of one. We know that it comes in blue. I believe that I've heard that I think maybe the Umbracos have a Persian pearl one. Don't know about the tangerine, but definitely comes in the rest of these colors. The flower tops are very common in jade and in ebony. Remember, they made jade and ebony jars and colognes, and they come in those colors. I think somebody married this one. This probably was actually a cologne top, and yeah, it'll have this has been ground off in here, and you can see that, and it really doesn't fit all that well in this jar. To me, it rides a little high in here. Probably fit in something else. Any questions on the colognes? Okay. Let's go to some of the other puff boxes. Now, remember we call them puff boxes because theoretically this is where you put your powder and your little puff mitt. That sort of stuff with the puff box. And our normal ones that we have, we've already talked about the 53s and 54s, but then we have 3 other ones, and one of them we don't have a number for, and that's this little tiny rascal. And the problem is when you see one of this, versus this in a cabinet in an antique mall, you're going to go, oh, which one is it? Look at the knob. This one has a ring under the knob. This one doesn't have a ring under the knob. Now, there are also other differences. This one has what I consider to be the true pagoda top, and this one has this little nipple top, little bobble at the top. Got that? So if you find this, if you see that in the cabinet, this is the rare one. This is the one that you want to try to get. And this one's a bit more common, but again, a pretty good item to find. Pardon? Oh, no.
So the rear, yeah. So
Okay.
that's another difference. Right?
Oh, yeah, this is the smallest one.
Okay.
But yeah, you can see there's
Yeah,
a big
that's
difference.
I didn't
But
know
like
that.
the problem is when it's one of them in the cabinet by itself, you go, is that the really small one or is that the, okay? We think it's another puff box. Yeah. For your rare powders. I don't know. Unfortunately, Fenton was never able to find the catalog page that had this in it. So we don't know what the number is for this one. And then the probably most obtainable one is the largest one. And that would be this one. This one is again has one ring in there, but has 3 rings down here on the stem that make that one. And you see this all the time on eBay. Small comport. No, it's a puff jar base. Okay, and it's missing its lid. And I've never seen these reshaped for anything else. They always perfectly fit a puff jar lid if you have the lid for that. So. Well, yeah, the comment up here, it's not stretching on the top. Remember that it's iridized, but what would happen if they put this back into the Lear to reheat it to make it stretchy? It's going to change its size and it wouldn't fit. Now the bottoms usually have pretty good stretch on those, but for the tops they just lightly doped them and said, we're done, throw it in the Lear. We don't want to reshape that. Now some others that I had some discussion with Renee and Pam as to whether they should be in here or not, but I won out on this one. There are some other jars that are available. My feeling is that this is another puff jar, and this one's an interesting one in that this is a press molded base and a press molded top, but if you'll notice, very delicate top. And my feeling is that the Fenton company didn't make these very often because they chip so easily with these, because they had to fit around the outside of that. And since this is resting on that rim in there, it was pretty easy to chip those. And again, I've seen at least 4 or 5 of these in tangerine, just the base. But as you can see, we were only able to accumulate 1 with the lid. Yeah. Now, a very similar one, if you take a look at the ball top or the ball knob on this one, this is actually a covered bonbon. Now, this is mine. And again, I think I've only seen a couple of these around. I've seen one in blue, and I think there's a couple of them in pink. But this one's a really delicate one again. The lid, it's got these really sharp edges on it, very easily chipped. This has got a couple of little chippies on the inside of it. And the problem with these is that when they made them, they had to make them so that this fit. And as you can see, if I just put this in here lightly, it doesn't fit very well. And I have to rotate this thing around until I get it just right, and then it will fit in there. I'm not going to do it here because I know I'll mess it up. That's a very uncommon item to find those.
And it's not a puff jar.
And I agree. That's a covered bonbon, but I wanted you to see what it looked like anyway. And it would, yeah, you could hold a lot of those bath balls or whatever in that rascal. Another jar that's I think in that same line. If you take a look at the lid is very similar to that, very thin, very easily chipped. Goes into a sort of a shorter squatty base. And again, I see these periodically by themselves. But when I see this definite rim coming in and out like that, I know it's a base for this little jar. Okay. Some of the rarities. I only know of 3 of these sort of squatty colognes that have the flower top. So that's the tough one to find in that. I believe John Maley had a green one in our book. So there's a green one out there somewhere. And marigold one came in. I don't know, Tom and Sandy, did you have one in that one? Okay. All right, shall we go to, oh yeah, the bath salt jars basically come in 2 forms. They come in a, now it's interesting, in the catalog they just call this a bathroom jar. But the wide lid one, get those close together so that you can see those, this one they call a bath salts jar, okay? Now, the interesting thing is that many of these were sold as sets with gold paint on them. And if you see gold paint around the rim, see that? They would have originally had a gold line around each one of these, and there would have been gold writing on that. The problem is the gold writing, again, was not heat applied, so it rubs off or cleans off very easily. This one has just the faint residue that says bath salts on there. I've seen these with other types of different unguents that were common at that time that was put into these jars, and some of them have those writings on them.
This is a good example of the gold band there.
Yeah, here's one. If you take a look at this jar, everything's been rubbed up. Well, I can see just a little bit of gold band right up here, but you see the gold band here. This would have had some writing on it identifying what was in that jar, what was supposed to go put in that jar. I forgot, they're called unguents, but I forgot one was like sassafras tonic or something like that. Or yeah, I've seen one with Listerine on it and so forth. Anyway. Yeah. Let's see. Oh yeah, actually here's one that says Listerine on it. But again, you can see it's got that gold around it, and if you find them with the gold, they originally did have some lettering on it, but it's very possible it would have worn off. Oh, here's another one. Bicarb soda. See, I don't think.
That one doesn't have any.
No, don't see any.
But this is the 16 and this is the
Right.
17.
Okay, yeah. So as Renee was pointing out, the one with the small stopper is the 16, and the bath salts jar, the one with the large jar, is the 17. Okay, I think we've got those covered. I guess we will do the trays, just to show you the trays. These are really tough to get anymore. When people take a look at them, they go, well, they're just plain iridescents. Well, again, as far as we can tell, they didn't really reheat these. They just popped them out of the shell mold, iridized. And I've looked at them carefully. I'm not sure how they iridized this and held on to it. You know, how do you hold on to this thing and get the dope on there? Because they didn't snap it or they didn't stick it onto anything, so I'm not sure how they did that, but they have iridescence, and the iridescence is always on the inside of that. I don't know if they held it on a pad and just ran it through the dope and put it in that way or not, but it's the way they come. Let's see, let's move into just a couple of last items here. We were able to come up with some U.S. glass pieces. And we considered these to be boudoir items. Unfortunately, there is a catalog page that's in one of the Brickenhauser's U.S. glass books. Or no, it's in Ed Goshi's book on U.S. glass. He's got an advertising page where one of these trays is sitting next to a little 3-tin basket. You've seen those little U.S. glass handled baskets. The baskets are only that big around with little ribs on the sides of them. But it had that basket and this saying, this is your card set. And you were supposed to put mints in the basket, and this was an ashtray. They identified it as an ashtray. But my feeling is it's a really weird ashtray, and to me they make better pin trays in your boudoir rather than an ashtray. Yeah, let's move to the now some when you had a person coming over and staying overnight. It was always nice to have a little water in the middle of the night, so you give them water with its little glass tumbled up in that. And so these, as you can see, are these used to be really common, but now we're not seeing many of them. And most of the time I see them in the cabinet. Interesting vase. Okay. But, right. Now we've got some guest sets in here, and I'm not going to go into all the details of these, but I do want to show you that there are some important things you need to understand in these guest sets. Notice that in the Fenton guest sets, that the tumbler in this case fits on the inside. Virtually all of the Fenton ones, except for one set down there that we'll get into, are ribbed up on the inside. But here's the clincher. Most of them come with the same color of handle, or they may have a cobalt blue. You want to hold up the cobalt blue one? So those of you that collect these already know that. But if you're just kind of getting started collecting these, understand that there is a difference between the one that has the original glass color and one with a cobalt color. And actually, my way of thinking, you can't just make a statement that cobalt's rarer than the others. It can be just the opposite. In many cases, especially like the Celeste blue ones, I see more cobalt handles than Celeste blue handles in that. And also what came in, I've seen quite a few Persian pearl with cobalt. I really like the color combination on that, but look what showed up. A crystal handle. Now, why isn't that iridized? Yeah, remember that this was a blown molded piece. It was blown in as a bubble into a mold. Actually, the bubble was first put into what we call a little paste mold that put the ribs on the outside. Then when they expanded that bubble inside of the jug mold, that pushed the ribs to the inside. So you can actually feel the ribs on the inside of it and left a smooth outside for that. This was then snapped up, held in a snap like that, taken over and reheated, doped, then the shaper put a lip on it, and then he handed it to the handler, who was another guy that had a glob of hot glass and applied the handle to that, okay? So the handle is the last thing that goes on, and it goes on after the jug has been doped. So if you ever find a iridized handle, that had something else going on with it, okay? Now I find it kind of interesting that there's a fair number of the tangerine jugs. Virtually almost all of them will have tangerine handles, but I'm aware that there is one cobalt blue one out there. Okay, so in this case, where we have the Persian pearl, the pearl handle is the rare one, and the cobalt handle is the common one of that. So, you know, you can't just say if it's cobalt, it's rare. It depends on the piece. Now, look at the handle of that rascal. Pardon? Really opaque. Yeah, this one's struck, okay? And so this is very opalescent. And remember, the tangerine is a striking color. And those people that really like tangerine like opalescent with it. And they will pay a lot more if it's got that opalescent that's obviously struck in there. So again, just be aware of some of the little subtleties on some of these items. So, any questions on those? Yes.
I just want to go back to the up boxes, the two wisteria ones, because you showed the two smaller.
Okay.
We purchased the smallest of them with a rouge pad in it.
Oh, really?
So that could be the difference.
Okay. Okay. What she said, they had actually purchased the smaller one with a rouge pad in there. So that would explain you don't have a big quantity of rouge to make your cheeks a little bit pinky. So, okay.
A little bitty, but that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Let's go to the last ones. And here we're actually switching over. And Northwood also made a guest set. And their guest sets are generally it's called diamond optic or quilted optic, depending on who you talk to. And this one again, the tumbler itself, to me fits rather uniquely. As you can see, the tumbler is very straight-sided, so it just fits straight down in there. Then it has a very wide base to it that's molded in there, and it's actually the base that sits on the top of that and holds in. While in the Fenton ones, I'm always a little bit worried about that because the jug or the cup fits by tension in there, and I'm always afraid never ship those things with the tumbler in there, because if it heats and expands or cools in shipping, it's probably something's going to break on those. Now, these come in the primary colors in Northwood: blue, topaz, and then the jade blue over here. Those are the ones that we see. And russet way over there. So those are the four common colors that you'll find those in. I guess I did miss one item here. Looks like a really nice coffee cup. Okay? But if you look inside of it, it's got three little pegs. It's a shaving mug. Those three little pins are in there to keep your soap from rattling around. And so this is the rear Fenton shaving mug. You see them okay?
They're hard for me to see.
Okay, well, you can feel them. Put your finger in there, you'll feel them.
And we only know of 2 colors.
Yeah. And as far as we know, it only comes in topaz, and we have a Celeste blue one. And I think, at least personally, I only know of 3 of the Celeste blue and 2 of the topaz. There's very likely more out there, but those are all that I'm aware of. We were so lucky. We all have good collecting stories, but our collecting story on this one is Renee and I, when we first moved to Ohio, used to go up into southern Michigan to a bunch of antique stores up in there. And I think it was Tecumseh or someplace like that. Yeah, right across the border. And there was this one mall that we always went into, pretty good sized mall, but there was a little shop next to it. We went into the shop, and this guy, I looked over and I go, "Is that iridized?" And I went over and looked at it. Holy moly. I've never seen that before. And he had like 2 or 3 pieces of other stretch glass, and I went out and said, "Renee, you go deal with this guy." And he was more concerned about the bowls than this. We got it at a pretty good price, I think. And we didn't really know how rare it was until we brought it to convention one time, and people said, "Where did you get that?" But they are out there. Going back to the guest sets, remember that we do have the curtain optic ones that are out there. And did you notice the difference between the two? This has the topaz handle, and the other one has the cobalt blue handle. So again, just to make it more complicated for you. Now, my feeling is this is the rarer handle, but boy, that looks much nicer on the shelf. And these do have the curtain optic also. It's in the tumbler. So don't be fooled. Somebody could put just a plain topaz tumbler and try to sell it off. No, it should have a curtain optic tumbler in there. And again, you can feel that it's curtain optic. Again, this was made, it's a blown molded. It was actually, the bubble was first placed in a mold to make these scallops on the outside. Then it was put in a paste mold and blown on out, and that shoved the ribs or the curtains onto the inside. You ever felt those? See, they're on the inside.
That means it's rough on the inside, actually, where you can feel the
Yeah.
I thought that's what you meant.
See, it's smooth on the outside, but you can feel the curtains on the inside. Yeah.
The indentation.
Now, Cal had suggested to Pam and Renee that they make vignettes out of these, and so they thought, well, we'll add some small fan bases, and you can see a variety of fan bases that they matched up in here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on those because you still have about an hour to hit some of the antique malls out there. Pardon? Oh, thank you very much. I did miss these little rascals. Now, there are some true 1402 diamond optic colognes. Now, these are known fairly well in ruby non-stretch and in some of the other colors, but not stretch. The only ones that I've seen in stretch is in Celeste Blue. They have a little stopper in them. This one's exceptionally great because it has the original Fenton sticker. That's the original of the period Fenton logo sticker. So don't clean that. At most, you might just dust it off with a very light duster. And we have come up, there's two of those that have shown up. This one, unfortunately, the stopper got broken off. And I know that Russell Umbraco out in California has one. Hold on here. Now, Pam brought in here it is in green. I don't think these are iridized, are they? Yeah, I don't see any iridescence, but here it is in green. The stoppers are missing on these, but like I said, they come in the other colors. And my feeling is these were made sort of at the end of Fenton stretch glass and when they started experimenting in other colors and other things to make their sets out of. But pretty little rascals. And the last gizmo here. Mary Elda came in. I thought, oh boy, we got another pagoda top. Does anybody notice anything weird inside of there? When I pull the stopper out, I go, what in the world? It's got a little ball on the end of it. That's the first time I've ever seen that. You got a unique item. Yeah. Yeah. I guess to hold more stuff. To hold more. Oh yeah. But that's the only one I've ever seen with that ball in there. Yes.
You see the European ones usually have the ball.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe they were just experimenting to kind of copy.
Yeah. The comment is that having that little ball on the end of it is fairly common in European colognes and perfumes. So maybe they were thinking of marketing this in Europe. All right.
Did he say anything about decorating?
Yeah, Renee's reminding me I haven't said much about decorated pieces. There are some decorations. You'll probably remember that in our book, John Madeley had photographed a set of these that he got the picture out of the Fenton Museum, where there's actually the tray has the same decoration on it. It's got the puff box and the cologne with the decoration. This is another set. So they obviously whoever had decorated more than just one set of these. We don't have the tray for this, but the jar and the cologne has shown up. See Cal Hackman has the cologne, and this is our jar. I guess, Cal, whoever finds the tray first gets them all. Yeah. You'll often get decoration. My feeling is that this is the amateur hour enameling. Some lady said, I'm going to jazz up my boudoir set. And pardon?
Is it on the outside or the
Yeah, it's on. You can feel it on the outside, and it looks like you can see the paint strokes in there. It wasn't fired on; it was put on with enamel. Uh, Likewise, here's another little jar with a little bit brighter painting, but this is not factory applied.
This is very delicate.
Yeah. Now this one I'm pretty sure would be factory decoration. This is a green one. Now they actually put the green enamel on the pedal. They put the pink in here, but as you can see, very delicate floral decoration on this side. The other side had the same decoration. I took a photograph of this and I realized when I blew it up that, but this has been rubbed off on the back. So it actually had this floral arrangement on two sides of it. And the detail and the complexity of this indicates this was probably done by a professional, not somebody that was having a weekend event. Okay.
Point out that blue band is
Yep. I'm really interested in this one. This has got blue. These are blue enamel bands. They're not applied. Okay. And the reason why I'm interested in this one is that remember, there's a whole set of plates and cups that have a cobalt crest on them. And I've always kind of wondered, was this, since it would be very difficult to put a crest on something this thin, was that something that they made to maybe go with the crested sets and match it a little bit? I don't know. But I've not seen any other pieces with that. But the lines are so precise and so delicately done. They feel like they've been fired on. So my feeling is this was done at the factory. This isn't something that somebody applied secondarily. Nope. Vanna's trying to keep you out of the malls. Remember that Fenton did have a cutting shop, and they did a fair number of what I consider to be regular floral motifs, primarily on their marigold pieces, is what I see those in. This one's, I'm not even sure I'd call that a floral motif. It looks like circles with leaves in between them. The tumbler, here's the matching tumbler. Now, why isn't this imperial? Well, if you look at it, the imperial had the ribs on the inside. This doesn't have the ribs, and this has the little jar or tumbler that fits on top of that. Yeah, most of the ones that we find, the tumbler will have some sort of a matching cutting on it. And I have seen ones that have the cutting on the base and they have a plain tumbler in it. I suspect those were matched up somewhere. But as you can see, this is really neat. It's got this complicated grapevine that's coming through here with the tendrils, the little curlicue that holds it fast, and a cluster of grapes. And then the tumbler's got the same thing. However, when it's on there, the grapes are upside down. Yeah. Now, this is a really interesting piece to me. When I first looked at it, boy, they globbed the paint on this. But what I want you to take a look at is, if you look at that, this is coralline. This is and it's probably a factory decoration. The coralline are little glass beads that reflect the light. If you get the light just right, the little glass beads will reflect that back. Again, be very careful how you clean these. Those coralline beads will pop off of there pretty easily. See any reflectance off of them? Yep. You know what Corleone's like. Yeah.
Wouldn't take very much.
I didn't know. So Fenton did that? I didn't know.
Yeah, the question back here, do you think Fenton did that? They actually had two periods that they put coralline on their pieces. They had an early period, and according to George and Frank, if you take a look at these beads, these are very uniform. They had to buy these glass beads from Europe and have them shipped over. They put them on the pieces. And then if you'll remember, I think in the mid-90s, they made some Celeste blue pieces that they also did a coralline decoration. And they explained they had a devil of a time getting consistent beads to do it. And they said they never got coralline beads that were the same quality as the original ones.
That was bought from Bill Crow.
Pardon?
That was bought from Bill Crow.
Oh, neat.
He left his tag on there.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Oh. This is Fenton. A little tumble up. You notice anything unusual about it? Yeah. It's got rings down here, and the tumbler has rings. Okay? But what's even more strange about this is diamond optic, both in the tumbler and in the base. So this is a 1402. Where's our blue one? Here's a set that Renee and I found. It's got the rings. Rats. Somebody married a blue. So one of those vases that you find, this was so they matched it up here. So we're looking for the one with the little rings in it. If you hold this one up, no optic at all. Okay? So to complicate your collecting experience even more, if you're going to get them all, you need them with the rings but without diamond optic, and then with the rings with the diamond optic and the matching tumblers. Okay, now have I...
Okay.
Okay, any last questions? Okay, now you can make it. Thank you very much.